I would take this opportunity to introduce the moderator for our next panel, AI for CX and Customer Success. And then the moderator would be introducing the distinguished panelist. Again, thank you, Surbhi, for stepping in at the last moment to help us salvage this whole panel. My friends, I will give a brief introduction to Surbhi, her career and path, but I would say something before that. 3 sentences which characterizes her. If there was ever a doubt that a high level of IQ can exist with a high level of emotional intelligence, today is your answer. She's an IIT Kanpur alumnus. If there was ever a doubt that you can be firm but polite, today is your answer. And if there was ever a doubt that diversity can coexist with high level of quality, today is your answer. An undergraduate from IIT Kanpur, there is nothing above that in India, sorry, other IITs, and somebody who's completed her general management program from Harvard Business School, nothing exists above that. Surbhi had a long and storied career in Silicon Valley, across every known company that you can think about. Cisco Systems, whose CEO was honored to have a photograph with her today, Hewlett-Packard, Netflix, Google, and now she's a senior level executive at Juniper Networks. She has been a partner in crime with me and Ashish in helping us build the Global IIT Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning Forum, and she runs the CX and customer success for Juniper Networks. She'll be basically marrying the 2 domains of CX and customer success and artificial intelligence and bring along the perspective from B2C as well as the B2B perspective. And my last statement would be, if there was ever a doubt that people who live in civilized society, highly educated and good people, are publicly willing to accept me as a friend, today is your answer. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Tushar. That was a beautiful introduction. I truly am humbled and I appreciate it. I hope I can do justice to my amazing esteemed panelists here on the same. But before I introduce them, I do want to say this is the best panel today. And the reason is that what can be more exciting other than creating impact for our customers, right? You can build the most amazing products, but if you don't know how to get your customers to love your products, you cannot be successful. I come from a product management world and I have transitioned into customer experience, and I tell you, it's night and day. I now realize the value of customers more than ever. So without further ado, let's get started. We have amazing speakers here with me. First of all, Dr. Tatyana Mamut. She's an anthropologist and transformational product leader who has led the development of new products and businesses at Pendo, Amazon, Salesforce, and Nextdoor, amazing companies. She has served on the board of directors for Sauce Labs and user testing, and is an international speaker on topics of innovation, scaling culture, and the human future in the age of AI. She's a refugee from Ukraine and currently lives in San Francisco. Welcome, Tatyana. Next up, we have Ashraf Karim, a native local woman leader here who's currently a SVP at a firm. She has years of experience in engineering, product, and operations. And being a Silicon Valley native, she has held product and engineering roles across various industries in networking, ads, and fintech space. She has worked at companies like Cisco, Verizon, Google, most recently PayPal, and now at a firm. She leads the financial services platform product organization and enjoys using technology to create the best customer experiences while delivering business growth and productivity. So please welcome Ashraf. And last but not the least, Mohit Padalkar from VMware. Mohit was saying to me that you needed a diversity candidate, so you got me here. But the truth is that customer experience and customer success often are thought of as fields where we have women leaders. So it's really nice to see Mohit and people like Sumit, his boss, are all big fans of customer experience and have invested a lot. So let me give a little short intro on Mohit. Mohit is a global digital product and engineering executive, leading digital experience team at VMware's CXS, Customer Experience and Success Organization. He is responsible for delivering a unified, simplified, and curated digital experience for VMware's vision of durable growth. His team's goal is to help customers achieve business objectives by delivering seamless digital capabilities. This all sounds very easy, but let me tell you, it's super complex. Seamless digital capabilities, and we'll talk about that. He has more than 20 years of building platforms to support global operations for e-commerce organizations such as Target, Best Buy, Macy's. So as you can see, Mohit comes from a very much B2C consumer world. So we will open the conversation today. First, let's welcome Mohit. Please, a warm round of applause for Mohit. Thank you. And VMware is a big sponsor for our track today, so that's another call out. So let's start with you, Mohit. You have made the transition from the B2C space into B2B, right? Leading technology company like VMware into a CX-centric capacity is a challenge. It's a transformational journey, and big techs typically do not have the CX mindset. So can you share with us what challenges you faced as you came from that B2C world and trying to implement some of those customer thought processes here?
Absolutely. Good morning, everybody. So first time in my life I was included in the diversity segment, right? So first of all, I am from Texas. Now I'm part of the diversity. It's a unique experience for me. B2C to this technology organization, it was a very, very exciting transition. Sometimes I miss, that B2C level scale. Some of us have worked in, B2C. But then I remind myself about Black Friday and Cyber Mondays, long hours, and then I'm back to normal, right? So when you talk about scaling CXS, there are three major factors which are important, right? Number one, understanding your customers. The customer obsession, the customer centrality. Number two, making sure that you build that seamless and frictionless digital experience for your customers. And number three, which is often overlooked, is making sure that your field team is armed with actionable insights. Dr. Saha talked about assembled chairs. So we need to make sure that people who are facing customer, they have assembled chair. They are not assembling chairs with a part in front of customers. So let's and all of these things are empowered by AI ML, right? Like, so we are using the power of AI ML to make sure that we are meeting customers' objective. So let's get into customer obsession, right? Like it's a pretty flashy term, but what it basically means is that you need to understand everything about customer. Who is your customer? Where they are in the customer journey? What is their outcome they are looking for? And do we understand them, right? And our customer obsession start pretty early in the customer journey, from their need, from their POC. Then we make our way into the consumption, then adoption, and making hopefully get into the expansion. So we closely monitor what customer is doing. We make sure all of the internal teams are aligned with customer's outcome, and we relentlessly pursue that. And it's extremely important that you have that objective, and it's clearly articulated for all the internal teams. Second thing is, obviously building the digital experience, my passion, coming from B2C. It is important, right? Because the line between B2B and B2C is blurring now, right? Everybody wants the consumer grade experience now, right? So ensuring that we meet customer in their moment of need, giving them all the information, minimizing clicks and maximizing outcomes is extremely important. And this capability is extremely important to scale digitally also, right? Because human intervention is not going to be possible for every customers. So we use this strategy very successfully for our long tail customers. And last but not least, right, like our frontline soldiers, right, our field people, whether it's professional services, whether it's global support or customer success, they need to understand everything about customer. They have to have the actionable insights about the customers. We want our field leaders to spend more time with the customer rather than analyzing the data. Right? A lot of times that's what happens, people spend too much time analyzing data and very less time with the customer. So we try to maximize that and ensure that, AI ML is used profoundly in that space.
Yeah, I think all three areas you have called out are not possible without machine learning. Even the customer data, the ability to take insights from that needs ability to create that. And so I will turn it over to Ashraf talking about customer data, because you are in fintech space and your gold mine is your customer data. And the question I have for you is, you will be using this customer data not just to improve and bring efficiency for your customers, but also to do risk management for your own company and try and achieve the business goals for your company. How do you think about that? What are the challenges that you have in the data space as you build these models that will be used for the three specific areas that Mohit called out?
No, it's actually really interesting. And even as you were talking, what was coming to my mind, and I say this because having been also in the CS space for several years prior to what I do today, it was largely based on empathy, right? It's like understanding the customer. You're constantly finding ways to personalize and give them the best experience. But when you think of it from a fintech standpoint and you're transforming the banking industry, the use case, so what I was saying is that when you think about the migration, when you think about customer success, and you think about the use cases that are more related to empathy, like how do you support the customer post-transaction primarily, and then you think about in the fintech space, right? It's kind of a little bit, it's really interesting because you have so much data that's out there and you're transforming the banking industry to some form. You're trying to take an action. The customer's mindset is, I want to make a purchase, or I want my money. And you're now trying to disrupt this using technology. So the use case of AI and ML is very different in that sense. And for the customer, it's just a matter of do what I'm asking to be done because they're here for a purpose, and how we actually deliver that. So when you think about fintech, the way we use AI and ML, it's a slightly different use case where it's really around managing the risks and ensuring that at the same time that we know who the customer is, we're giving them what they're asking for, and at the same time that we also feel and know that this customer and this transaction is going to be successful and that the customer will repay over time. So it's a slightly different use case, more business agnostic or business relevant, and from that sense. But at the same time, what I would say in terms of our data challenges is that there's so much data that's out there. And I think customer intent is so important to bring that into every transaction and to make that more human-like or personal for that customer. I think that's an opportunity, and that's a good problem for us to solve for.
And I think we'll talk a little more about that personalization bit in a second. I want to turn it over to you, Tatyana, after hearing from high tech and fintech. Now let's look at the VC. You look at a lot of startups, and I think there's a mind shift that's happening in pivoting everything based on AI ML. We will talk about generative AI later too, but right now let's talk about how every company, startups to mid-sized companies, everybody is looking at how to use AI ML and how to incorporate that into your processes, product, but also experiences. And in fact, a lot of time in CX, we say experience is the new product. So share with us what your thoughts are around that, what you're seeing in the market.
So this mindset that experience is the product and the product is the experience is very much on the minds of entrepreneurs, of great product leaders, and definitely investors, right? If you guys have not seen Brian Chesky's tweet from this morning about how the transformation of the Airbnb product that happened this week, you should, because what he laid out is a blueprint that moves from the product features and the entire customer journey to post-purchase, to the actual experience, in the residence, and then, post-transaction, post-stay. So that entire customer journey we're starting to understand, and great product leaders are really leaning into not just the technical sort of feature development, but the entire customer journey development. And one of the pieces around this is I would very much, echo what Mohit said, which is how do we make sure that we have the data that's feeding into not just product development and not just where customers are clicking, but also the entire customer experience to feed back into product development. One of the things that I at enterprise companies, I'm sure this is for those of you who work in enterprise, whether you work in customer success or whether you work in product, you'll see that there is some friction, right? Customer success is constantly saying, we're giving product feedback, and they're not, what are they doing with it? I feel like it's going into a black hole. And so more and more what we're seeing is that product managers are actually building in the customer success feedback and the data from customer success directly into the product management tools. Like, I just came out of an assignment at Pendo. I'm still an advisor to them, and that feedback platform really focuses on having one common data infrastructure that AI and ML is applied to really help give product managers the relevant feedback from all the click path data, from all the product data, but also from all the customer success data. And putting that into one data platform is really, really critical to allowing that product experience to encompass customer experience in the way that I think most of our companies want. And we intend. It's not that the product managers don't intend to use the customer success feedback into their product development. It's just that before now, we really haven't had a lot of common data platforms that really bring those two aspects together. The product data, the customer success data, apply AI and ML to really extract the insights, because once you have all that data in one platform, there's a lot of data. So how do you make sense of it, right? That's where you need the AI piece to really come in.
Yeah, that's amazing insight, Tatyana, and you're absolutely right. A lot of enterprise companies are still at the starting point where they are mapping out that customer journey to even understand where all can they create that impact, and then to take that feedback from each stage of the journey and incorporate it back into their processes and products to ensure you're giving that seamless experience to your customers that Mohit talked about. So continuing in that thought process of building amazing experiences for the customers, I think one thing that comes to top of mind, which is very commonly done in B2C space, is personalization, building an omni-channel experience. So I would throw that question over to you, Ashraf, because I know this is something you have done at PayPal, you're trying to do it at Affirm. So first and foremost, I would love for you to explain to the audience what omni-channel even means. I think people do have different opinions of that. And then how do you implement technologies or use AI/ML to implement omni-channel and personalization, and how do you prioritize some of those initiatives in your company? Because not everybody is investing. Yes, VCs might be pushing startups to think about that, but we are not there yet. So how do you give guidance to startups or even established enterprises there?
No, it's a great question, and it's also relevant to even one of our conversations earlier. And the way I think about it is, I think a lot of times we think about omni-channel and customer journey, and we kind of bundle it together. So I think one is just understanding, right, what is customer journey, which is event-based data. It's understanding where the customer has come from. And then you think about an omni-channel experience. An omni-channel experience for a customer is the ability for them to go between different surfaces and channels, from voice to digital, from online to web, across multiple pages, and to be able to carry that context along, right? That's your omni-channel. Now you bring customer journey with an omni-channel platform together, now you've got a delightful opportunity to personalize that experience. And I think that's the journey. And when we talk about personalization and how do we get there, I think omni-channel and customer journey data and platforms are very important for that. To the question on how do we think about prioritization, I think I'm a huge advocate of business or value-driven prioritization, right? So what is the value? And the value is largely could be trying to grow revenue, trying to reduce churn, like if you're trying to, at a point of increase engagement, right? Those are all your different values. So I think if you look at what's important to you and what you're trying to accomplish, right? There's many different things that you could work on. And identifying what your KPIs are, what are the goals that you're trying to move, that'll help you prioritize. But a second thing that's super important when it comes to AI and ML, because it's all programmed in some essence, is you really understand the customer experience. and how do they feel about that engagement on that digital experience and that platform that you're providing. And I think that is the customer experience scores that you can look at. You can look at churn to see how well the customer felt as they went through your experience. But I think that also, in order for AI to be successful in your organization, in your company, I think it needs to also have that customer experience look. And I know, Mohit, you've done a ton of this, so any thoughts?
Yeah, Mohit, I wanted to punt over to you to say if you can continue sharing, like, how is ML playing such a critical role in customer experience today? Like 5 years ago, we did not think about, customer experience and machine learning in the same sentence, and today it's just a given. So can you share a little bit about that transition? And as Ashraf talked about, churn, customer sentiment, customer engagement, talk about how all of that is playing such a critical role.
Yeah, I think when you look at the customer success landscape, the biggest change which happened in last probably 3 to 4 years is pivot towards SaaS and subscription. And because of that, so previously, you will sell enterprise licenses, you'll make your money, you'll sit pretty, and you're fine, right? Now, if your customer doesn't consume, you don't get paid. So suddenly from the sequential waterfallish kind of model, now this became actually team sport, right? Tatyana talked about product not, listening to customer success and so on. Now everybody's together now, right? Product, your sales team, your customer success team, your professional services, your global support, and renewal team. Everybody wants to come together, right? What we have done is obviously, in that case, there is a huge incentive of making sure that we're aligned with customers' outcome and accelerating that, right? And that's where we use AI ML significantly, right? So figure out which companies or which customers are leaders, learn from them, apply that to the laggards, right? Learn from the brownfield customers, apply that to your greenfield customers. Again, crunch the data from the customer data platform and make sure that you have a curated save and expansion plan for every customer's in hand of your sales team as well as your customer success team, right? And one last thing I will say that we look at customer success plan as an anchor to all of these things, right? So every team basically rally around that customer success plan. And those customer success plan are pretty dynamic, right? And that's where, based on the product maturity level, based on the product telemetry, based on, what is happening in that vertical and all that, right? We actually generate some of those recommendations for customer success plan. And we have a pretty good success rate with that.
Thank you so much, Mohit. And I know we are running short on time, so I wanted one last question. And no talk today can be complete without generative AI. So I'm sorry, but I'm going to have a generative AI question. And I really believe that this is one of the most ripe fruits and low-hanging fruits in this space is customer success, customer experience. So I would love to hear from Tatyana. How are you looking at, GAI solutions or use cases that are most relevant to customer experience and customer space? And do you feel that this is a place ready to create that impact, or are we far away, like a lot of people have said earlier? So what are your thoughts there? And then I'll let you both talk about that, so think about it.
Yeah, almost every board right now is asking the management team, right? How are you looking at generative AI, both from the kind of product experience that customers are having, but also in terms of your internal operations, right? And so customer success is really at the intersection of those two questions when boards ask CEOs and operators those questions. And I think that there's an interesting hypothesis right now, right, that generative AI is at the point right now where it's a co-pilot. And the co-pilot for the customer success teams means that they will be more efficient, more productive. But there's another piece of it, which is that in reality, if you think about RLHF, the human pilots are really teaching the co-pilots how to do their jobs eventually, right? I mean, that's really what's going on with human reinforcement and human feedback. And so, I think the bigger question is, how do we as an organization want to shift and want to prepare our, employee base in customer success, but also on the product side, there's now an opportunity to create not just a personalized experience in the way that, ML kind of optimizes around the edges, but I really liked what Ankit said earlier about a native, AI experience where every customer could have their own specific UI based on the type of, questions that they're interested in, based on even their personality style that they're interested in. This starts with customer success in terms of just interacting, right, with a chatbot as opposed to a human being, or having in-app messages guiding customers through the user experience and through the product experience. But it actually then migrates into product development, right, where one of the things I tell startups is if you are designing a UI with menus and buttons and filters and dashboards, rethink that.
Yeah.
Because what is really going on with, a lot of the generative tools right now, especially the multimodal ones, is that the UI should be generated on the fly based on who the customer is, what their last sort of click path, was, or whatever their last sort of interaction was, and the type of style or the type of learning mode that they like. If they're a visual learner, give them a dashboard. If they're a more just sort of conversational learner, give them an answer. And so all of that is possible. And so all of this will transform.
If I can summarize, you're saying that you're taking personalization to a whole another level.
Yes.
This is not just taking the data, but a lot of understanding of what are the behaviors, what are the sentiments, and taking all that into account and creating a UI or an engagement that is very dynamic.
Exactly.
Very interesting. Ashraf and then Mohit, if you have closing thoughts on Gen AI. And I would also say, talk about the risk too. I think we were talking about Samsung earlier, so yeah, please go ahead, Ashraf.
Yeah, no, I think it's a huge opportunity, right? How many times have we gone to a help website and just seen like a long article, like who wants to read that? It's really hard. So I think it's a huge time savings in many ways also for people and consumers. And I think or in customers, it'll change customer behavior and expectations because at the end of the day, right, you want consumable content. And I think this is one way to solve for that.
I think, we were talking earlier also, right? So whenever we try to do something on the generative AI, then news like Samsung comes out and then, we get a stop, we have to stop, right? But I think from our perspective, we are focusing a lot on, just as Tatyana said, right? Creating that dynamic content, right? So right now, we are focusing on that aspect of it, understanding customer sentiments, understanding journey, where are they on the maturity, graph, what are some of their business use cases. Based on that, can you come up with that integrated product, digital marketing, professional services, customer experience kind of a content, which you can actually dynamically pop in the moment of customer experience. That's where we are right now focusing on.
Yeah. Thank you. Very, very well said.
Well, till today, we did not have a single question coming from any woman in the audience. And that's just not acceptable. We're trying to give a chance to diversity in a genuine way. Okay, go ahead.
We have
sir.
a diverse candidate here. Mohit.
You have a question?
Yeah, I'm not a woman, but I have long hair, so hopefully that counts.
That'll do. We'll take that.
So my... Oh, yeah. Okay. My question is for Ashraf. So with fintech and retail lending more specifically, I've had some experience working in data science where we built stuff that powered underwriting and KYC and collections. But a problem that we kind of couldn't fully solve was how do you take ML and solve for customer experience and success the fact that borrowing is inherently a need product rather than a want product, especially with the context that, borrowing has such different cultural attitudes across the world. So do you have any thoughts on that? Is there anything that you've, worked on in that regard?
I think people, there's biases on terms, right? I think when you say you're borrowing money, I think people think about that. They react to that differently versus if you say, hey, they're using a credit card, right? Everyone uses credit cards, right? They think about that differently as well. So I think it's an opportunity to change the way people think. And I think as you are, doing it for the right reasons and you're trying to really transform the credit card industry to some extent and provide another way, another means to provide honest financial services. I think it's a massive opportunity for us and to also change the perspectives and the mindsets of people.
Perfect. So before we end this panel took the most amount of effort and amazing leadership of Surbhi, Mohit, Ashraf, and Tatyana to put it together. This is a panel where we have panelists coming from all across the country, including from Texas. It's a panel which has sponsorship from the highest level in VMware, which clearly shows sponsored panels can have amazing quality content. Want to specifically thank everybody for coming to TiEcon under such busy schedules. And thanks again, Surbhi, Kaul.